I am honored to have our special guest speaker, geopolitical analyst, Wharton-educated George Siy.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Benji Manahan and Franco Mabanta. Ang gusto nating ipadala sa mga publiko ngayon is just a certain perspective of how to look at the issues now. We feel it's useful na apart from yung sinong tama o mali, hindi natin sinasabi kung sinong tama, mali sa iba't ibang mga panig. No? What we want to see, how do we make a successful and decision for our country and for ourselves, no, through defense. So if I may go ahead, no, so yung una, a lot of us grow up from our school and our parents, they tell us this is good, this is bad, this is correct or not, no. The first thing we have to start with is reality, because ngayon napakaraming fake news. So we have to know reality both today and in the past, and in perspective what works and doesn't work, because some people tell you ganyan dapat pero it doesn't work eh. No? So, first, to have a successful decision, it has to be based on reality, based on facts versus speculation. Sa short term, pwede yung speculation, pero later on, babagsak yan eh, no? So, majority sa, a lot of reports today, that's why we have these two very superstars in this field, because yung mga different views mapapakita nila, no? And then some facts and perspectives change over time. So, ang situation natin ngayon, tayong pinakamahina sa ASEAN. Both from the physical and investment infrastructure, makita nyo dyan sa taas. Tayong pinakamababa sa infrastructure. Dito rin sa baba, tayong pinakamababa sa digital infrastructure rin. So, paano tayo maghahabol? Now is the best time to catch up because Philippine growth rate is the highest. The interest rates is reasonable. Those who are older will remember na yung interest rates dati 16-21%, no? And paano, this is the fastest way. If we make the right decisions, nagko-compound yan eh. And yung digital is the way to leapfrog. So we are saying the decision-making is very important. We don't need the same infrastructure and capital we used to have to use before. So ano ang pinapakita? How do we make decisions? Paano natin gagawin modelo ng mga decision natin? Ang proven sa the reason we collect statistics is because scientifically the recent past is the best predictor of the future. So kung ano ang naging basehan ng mga decision ng tao sa recent past, yan rin dapat ang maging basehan natin. So that is so we have to look based on the recent history of the country and the current situation. No? So for instance, on these current issues, I'll touch very lightly on geopolitics lang because that's the specialty of our speakers later. And then I will go to the decision process. So yung sa history lang, makita natin sa 1,000 years, relationship with the Philippines, never naman nag-invade ang China. No? And if you saw in 1421, Zheng He went on 7 voyages around the world on a ship that is 5 times bigger than that of Columbus 100 years later. And they never invaded the Philippines. There was only trade. In fact, there was credit in a lot of relations between the two countries. No? Yung sa US naman, to give a perspective of how China is looking at things, we're not saying right or wrong eh. Kasi yung ginagawa nila, nagkaka-dispute sa atin eh. Pero from their perspective dahil para maintindihan natin, pag tingnan natin, yung US, ang daming na broken deals. They told us they would help liberate us, pero binili tayo from Spain, no? They took over Hawaii. They first invested in Hawaii, then they imprisoned the Hawaiian Queen. They first invested in Mexico, then they took over the western part of the United States. They said there's Iraqi, they told Iraq and Libya to disarm. When they disarmed, in-invade sila. So yung perspektibo na yan is how North Korea and China are looking at it. So we understand, we're not saying what they're doing is right or wrong, but so you understand that feeling nila, hindi nila matrust, kaya nangyayari yung mga nangyayari ngayon. Yung mga recent, pag sabihin natin na yan ay 10 years ago na yung Iraq or ganyan, yung most recent, yung Trans-Pacific Trade, yung NAFTA, yung Iran, pinatanggal nila yung nuclear weapons. Germany, Italy, France, and 4 major EU countries went to inspect and said, nag-disarm na, tapos sabihin ng yes, not counted. So we're not saying again right or wrong because sila naman, takot sila sa China. So naintindihan naman natin ang perspektibo nila. Next please. No? So what is not put out in the news is that in the case of China, 17 out of 23 border disputes have already been settled. This is never brought out. And 12 out of 14 land disputes, no? And in most cases, more than 50%, China gave up most of the land or the economic benefit, no? And so on, no? They have given up, they have forgiven, sinasabi debt trap, but actually China has taken over and paid for $3.8 billion of loans and forgiven them for other countries. And for the Philippines, it's over $300 million already. No. We're not saying again that this is everything because maraming dimensions. Everything is multidimensional. So hindi lang yung pera binibigyan niyo sa atin, paano niyo tayo tinatrato? No? So we understand there's many dimensions. Next. So we always look at things, when we make decisions, we make them based on benefits versus risk. No? But yung benefits at risk ay multidimensional. Maybe I earn less money from you, but I'm learning so much from you for my future. No? Maybe so marami yung mga dimension, no? Tapos itong risk na ito, nag-i-evolve over time. For instance, naghiram ako ng pera. Today, the interest rate might be 5%. Tomorrow, it shoots up to 12%. The risk is different already. So we're saying, when we analyze risk, yung sinasabi ng mga tao na, itong Japanese loan is only 0.5% versus China is 2%. But the Philippines and the IMF is giving you at 5, 6, 7%. So you don't have that availability. And the Japanese 0.5%, you have to pay hedging against currency, which makes it more than 2%, so it's more expensive. So maraming so you're paying lower interest, but you're paying a much higher cost for the project. It's 5 to 10 times more. Have you ever heard of any product out of Japan that costs less than from China? Wala yan eh. So, but we're not saying we should get it all from China, kasi maybe one will bring the market, the other will bring all kinds of things, no? So, we're just saying that we have to be open-minded next. No? So, makita natin yung decision-making system, nag-iiba yung Asian values sa American or Western values. Pag tingnan natin, for instance, yung Asian values, kung nag-aaway tayo, we try to harmonize and make it up. And we try to smooth out the differences. If we look at the Western value, litigation kaagad. So tayo parang nagiging driven to be litigant or ganyan. If we watch the movies, yung sa Asian movies, in the end you try to put the family together. If you watch, how many watch Avengers? Di ba? Ubusan ng lahi yan, di ba? That is our Iron Man. So that's a different, we're not saying it's right or wrong. On one end, if you're very aggressive, maraming innovations will happen. You're forced to it. On the other hand, maraming nasasaktan, no? So, also, we're blending yun. People say, corrupt yan. Pero you're not saying corrupt yan, pero he's doing a better job than the other guy who's not corrupt. So, multidimensional. We're not purists. We're blending realities. So, the Asian way is, there's good and bad in everything. Huwag nating pilitin na kailangan purong mabait. We always fail it, then we become hypocrites, no? Our objective, Sun Tzu himself says that the objective is not to win over or crush the opponent, but to make him your ally. No, that's the apex of victory. No, so if we look at the situation, we're saying they're calling, in general, they're calling China bully, but the U.S. budget for the military is more than the next 8 countries combined. And in the last 50 years, they have started more than 20 wars. No, and there are 800 bases militarily versus China's 1 base. So you can understand na paparanoid yung tao yung sa China, but we're not saying that means they have the right to do these things to us, no? But we're saying so we can understand the perspective, no? So on the other hand, China is so sinasabi nila debt trap, but it's up to us to decide if we want the loan. Hindi naman pinipilit sa atin. They're using it to build infrastructure around the world. Then we have to learn to do our own analysis. So life, no, sa Asian is a balance of good and bad. Even our parents, even our kapatid, even our asawa, wala namang purong good or purong bad, no? And so competition, you're cooperating and competing at the same time. This is an Asian, and now even the West is beginning to look at this, no? So tingnan, yung Apple is using the chips of Samsung, but they also sued Samsung for using their icons. And now Samsung is using their icons. So walang puro no? Alibaba, they're saying that China is trying to take over technology of the world. But the biggest shareholder of Alibaba is Yahoo of the US and SoftBank of Japan. No? The biggest shareholder and investor of Tencent, they did not get from China. It's from a media company in South Africa. The world is globalizing. So even dito, ang nangyayari is our media, for instance, our media, how many people are watching Netflix, YouTube, ganyan? Even if our regulation says it has to be Filipino-owned, actually 70-80% of it is already foreign-owned because that's what they're watching, no? So North and South Korea, dati nag-away, ngayon They are collaborating already. East and West Germany, US and China, even though they're fighting, they're also collaborating. So we're saying there doesn't need to be a pure situation. Like sometimes yung mga advocate dito, sinasabi na, don't do research with China, don't do borrow loans, don't do lahat hindi pwede. So, we're saying it's not the optimum. That's not good for Philippines. We don't have enough resources or abilities to go that route. Some countries, if you're very powerful, pwede naman yan. So, for instance, Japan, Vietnam, and Taiwan, I picked these three because these three are the most pinakakaaway ng China. No? Japan talagang nag-aaway. Vietnam, they just burned the factories last year. Taiwan is a province that they're trying to break free and revolt. But Taiwan has 40 direct flights with China and is the biggest investor in China. No? Japan, kaaway, but they had 8 million tourists. Vietnam is the biggest investor in Vietnam is China. So we're saying that maraming mga factors titingnan ngayon. Pag titingnan natin rin yung mga disadvantage at advantage, makita natin na hindi basehan sa kung malaking kapital mo. Hindi. For instance, Obama at Steve Jobs, their parents, the fathers left them. But they're able to succeed. So they cannot do this if they're trying to be purist, no? And the same, no? So if we say again, you have to be smart. No? The US is our friend. I studied in the US. We have a lot of business in the US, you know. We take brands from the US eh. Kasi magandang sistema nila. But on the other hand, you know, because I negotiated for the Philippines, nung naubos yung mga visa for nurses from the Philippines, that year, they did not give Philippines a single additional visa and India got 9,000 more. So 9,000 more na place nila. Yung Japan got more aid than the Philippines. Filipinos died for the Americans during the Second World War, but the Japan got more aid than the Philippines. Vietnam, in 1 year, they got more quota. That means they got more exportable items to the US than the Philippines in 40 years. Kasi ako ang involved sa exports ng garments. I'm saying, utakan yan eh. So friendship is part, but you have to have brains also. Don't think that these guys are going to think for you. Kasi to them, the relationship is not as important as for the Asians. But that doesn't mean we drop the friendship, no? Yung Philippines in Second World War, why did the Philippines, well, because we're trying to create a framework, bakit yung Philippines had estimated, lowest estimate is 300,000, between 300,000 to 1 million casualties. During the Second World War, nung in-invade ng Japan. The highest casualty in the rest of Asia is 100,000 eh. Most of them is just less than 50, 20,000. Bakit ganon? We are dying for people that, a land that is, are we being the front line? Is it worth it for us? Did they pay our veterans? Did they give them citizenship? Did they, ano? But I assume that if we negotiated well and marunong tayong magdala, we could have gotten more from the relationship, no? So, let's be smart. What we're saying, let's be smart. Okay, so to be productive, we'll say, stop blaming others. We understand reality and we have to immerse in the game. This is very important because even if we are smart and we understand and we negotiate, if we don't immerse and we don't learn, because we are the #1 user of Facebook in the world. We are 6 hours a day on average. Pero most of it is for friends and chika-chika and not using it to learn, no? So that is an issue, no? We try to learn from the best because we're accessible ngayon through YouTube and these things, no? So productive engagement ang kailangan natin. So to win, and for the Filipino, we cannot depend on systems, we cannot depend on government. Today, we are more empowered than ever to learn by ourselves and to implement by ourselves. I went to the provinces, yung mga tour guides dyan. They're doubling, tripling their income because they're marketing on Instagram. So from Manila, instead of going to Manila, from Manila, they're going to the province. No? And then I have friends who are secretaries. They are their own mini outsourcing center. May 5 or 6 na kasi ginagawa nila scheduling for people in Germany, in the US. So ito lang, wisdom is never found in certainty, no? So today, if today we are starting from the position of thinking that we know that this is the case or this is the truth, we are saying the smartest people are always revising their understanding kasi itong katotohanan ay nag-evolve, no? Sige. So thank you very much. I hope we are able to give some perspective. Thank you.